Hey everyone, I'm Misha, and today I am here to share with you a plant that has been really kind of lost in some ways from our local cuisine and our local kind of appreciation of plants, especially natives. But herbalists know, and a lot of the old folk medicine considers this to be one of the most useful plants around, even though it's a weed. So today I'm here to talk to you about plantain. And what I love is, first of all, it grows pretty much anywhere. We're sitting in a location that's totally not my front yard. And I actually have two different types of plantain growing here. I have the herb of commerce, Plantago major, and then I also have Plantago virginica, which is probably one that you'll find a little bit more often here in Florida. So I wanted to talk to you about these guys because Plantago virginica actually kind of helped save my life after a really bad car accident I was in. So wanted to tell you all about these lovelies and share some of their medicine. So this is our herb of commerce. This is the Plantago major, which has a couple different names. Sometimes it's called broadleaf plantain, which you can see it gets its name because its leaves are nice and broad. It's also called sometimes common plantain because in other parts of the United States, it's super common. Here in Florida, we see it, but I've always been told it's not that it's rare, it's just in our area here in South Florida, you can't usually find it as much. My experience with it, though, if you're looking for it, it usually pops up somewhere around December to January, and it sticks around through until maybe March or April, and then it's not here anymore, and then it pops up again right when the weather turns cold. This soil is also super moist. If you look at the ground as I kind of scrape away some of the duff, the leaf litter, it's like black. So what I have found is that this one in particular really likes to be in areas that are pretty wet. If you look in some of the field guides, they'll tell you it'll grow pretty much anywhere, and it will. It's actually growing by a roadside here, and I've seen them come up through concrete, but my experience has been being out in the field. I don't necessarily see them in the field, but I do see them in a lot of disturbed areas, and that is part of what gives this plant its charm. So to talk about the identification of it, first of all, if you look, the leaves are growing in what we call a basal rosette. So if I pull some of these other, like these oak leaves away, you can see kind of everything is popping out from the same point. For our herb of commerce here, the broadleaf plantain, the leaves are, sometimes this is called oblanceolate because it's kind of long-shaped and oval. I like to think of it as a spoon. It looks like a spoon. And so if it's a plant that kind of has that spoon shape, and the other, the leaves are growing in this basal rosette, and if you look at the veins of the leaf, they all grow vertical. So they're all coming out of the petiole of the leaf to grow vertical. If you flip the leaf over, these are really like touching this. The veins of the leaf are pretty distinct. So if you rub your finger over them, you should be able to feel them. The leaves themselves are tough and they're thick and they feel juicy. But another really good way to see that this is the plantain is the leaves are really fibrous. So I'll take this leaf because it's kind of chewed up. If we tear, and that's how strong it is, it's hard for me to get it. If we tear the leaf, you should see, oh my gosh, there we go, perfect. You should see the fibers. So if you want to kind of zoom in on that, you'll be able to see them really, yeah, nice. So you can see the fibers of the leaf, and check out how strong this is. I'm pulling. It's still holding strong. I have to really yank this to get it to go. So to get it to tear off. So those fibers are a really good indication that you do have a plantain. Now, not every plant that has a basal rosette like that and leaves around it or has fibers is definitely a plantain, but if you've got that characteristic leaf shape and the veins on the back that are popping up, and if you see these lovely long flower stalks coming up, chances are it is your Plantago major or your common or broadleaf plantain. Let's look at some of the plants that mimic that, and I'll also introduce you to our Plantago virginica.
As we fly through this Plantago major, you can see the stalks of the plantain and even the tiny little flowers. Now these will seed up, and that is where we get our herb that's used in Chinese medicine, as well as today in our modern pharmacies, even our drugstores, you can find this as psyllium. Can you spot the plantains in this video? Keep an eye out for leaves growing in that basal rosette, so it should look like they're kind of growing in a circle. Long, thin leaves with those vertical ribs. And this is our other type of plantain you find a lot in Florida, Plantago virginica.
I mentioned a moment ago that there are some plants that look a lot like plantain and sometimes are mistaken for them. And this is one of them. This is not plantain. This is Youngia japonica, which is Oriental false hawksbeard. And this one actually gets sometimes mistaken not just for plantain, although I think it's kind of hard to mistake them, but not everybody does. Actually dandelion. Sometimes people think that this one is dandelion because it does have the really beautiful seed puffs and it does have the yellow flowers. But if you look closely at the yellow flowers, they actually aren't as puffy, I guess you could say, as dandelion. And if we move down, so we've looked at the flowers, those don't look like plantain. And then, so if it has a flower stalk on it and you see this, you'll know it's definitely not. We still have a basal rosette going on here. But if you look at the leaves, if you want to zoom in a little bit, maybe I can show them. We are not going to have fibers on this guy. So, oh, there's some more popping in there. So if we got all sorts of good stuff coming up here. If I were to pull this, it just completely like popped. Oh, there is a fiber, but it's not a network of them like you saw on the plantain. The other thing too is, can you have this? Thank you. If you look at the leaf shape, it's totally different than our broadleaf plantain. It's spiky. It's got the kind of the ruffles on it. It's got very clear lobes on the leaf, and it doesn't have multiple vertical veins coming up from the base of the leaf stalk. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a differentiation between our Oriental false hawksbeard and our broadleaf plantain. But let's look at another plantain because we actually have another one growing right here. So this little guy is our dwarf plantain, Plantago virginica. And if you look at it, you can see it shares some of the characteristics with the broadleaf, but its leaves are a little bit different. So these are more lanceolate, so they're long and thin. And they do have the parallel venation. And again, if you flip it over on the back, you can see that really, really well. So you'll see just the long leaf veins in there. What I love about this guy is it's fuzzy. So if you touch it, you can see, I don't know if you can really see it in the video, but the leaves are super hairy and fun. Oh, cool. You can see them really clearly there. And it does have teeth on it. And I've heard people, in a lot of the plant ID groups, people will post pictures of this one and they'll say, but plantain doesn't have teeth on it. Yeah, it does. This is another one of our native Florida plantains, the dwarf plantain, and it absolutely does have teeth on it.
So when we talk about the plantains here in Florida, and definitely elsewhere in the world as well, but I just want to show you where you're kind of likely to find them. So we're here in Anna Maria Island, Florida. We are on a really busy street. So as I'm talking, you'll see cars going by, you'll see a lot of people. But if we look down right at our feet, this is Plantago major. So this is the herb of commerce, we would say, for the plantains, growing right here in the middle of an area that looks like it was completely trashed. So this is a really great example of how tough this plant is. It's probably been run over. There's actual like bike tire tracks running it over. You can see just over here, a couple of the babies have been like run over, but they're tough. Like I'm kind of yanking on that leaf and it's not coming up. And so these are strong plants. Like I can like really pull on that and it's not coming out. So this is a great example of how tough and how strong these plants are, and also how resilient, because they really are growing in this like hot mess of nasty, just, parking lot area. When we talk about plantain's use in medicine, it actually has a surprisingly long history. We have evidence of it being used in medieval times. Hildegard von Bingen, who was really famous for her work in herbalism, she has written about this plant, and then we also see it popping up in Nicholas Culpeper's works in the 1600s. There's also evidence that it was brought over by Europeans to North America, and that's how it gets one of its names, either European foot or white man's foot or white man's footsteps, because it is said that everywhere the Europeans came across the continent, they left this plant behind. And you can kind of see in this beautiful patch all around me how it grows. It really just drops its seeds and kind of pops up everywhere. If you look at this beauty right here, it's the places that you see that are brown are the seeds, and that's part of this plant's magic. One of these stalks has anywhere from 20 to 50 little seeds on it, and or seed pods, I guess I should say, when the husk of the seed breaks open, it has anywhere from 2 to 40 seeds in it. What's even neater about this plant is those seeds can remain in the ground, so what we call the seed bank. So it's like all the seeds that are in the soil that are just waiting to grow. Well, the plantain seeds can remain there for up to 60 years. So what that means is if I scatter these seeds today, some of them may germinate next year, they may germinate in 10 years, they may germinate in 30 years. So it's a plant that has a long lifetime. In the Saxon culture, this was considered one of the 9 most vital herbs. So why? Well, these leaves are super tough, as you saw when I was doing the identification. You can see they're super fibrous. This is considered a vulnerary, so it's a wound healer, which means if I were to get a cut or an abrasion, I could just grab one of these leaves, kind of bruise it up a little bit, smack it on there, and because it's antibacterial and it's antiseptic, it can really help with the wound. Plantain's really fascinating because if you think of all those fibers, it helps knit things together, but it also has the property of being able to pull things out. So you can work with this plant to draw things out of the body. So things like splinters, or if you've been in a car accident and had any broken glass in your body, it actually will pull it out. And I am living proof of that. After getting into a very bad car accident, I had glass in my body, and I had made a plantain salve and just put it on every day, and it literally pulled tiny little flecks of glass, some of which were microscopic, out of my body. It was amazing. This plant is incredible. It's also considered antivenomous, and one of the names for it was snakeweed. And all the way back to medieval times, it actually did have some reputation for helping with snake bite. I don't recommend you try that one on your own at home, but just know that that is in the literature as something that it's great for. It also is a demulcent, so it's going to work on those mucous membranes, especially if they're hot and dry. It's going to soothe them and calm them down. And it's especially great if you have like bronchitis or any type of lung thing where your lungs may feel agitated. It's great for that. But it's also really well known for helping to moisten the bowels. And that was one of the things Culpeper wrote about. He actually talked about how taking this plant internally was really great for helping to soothe the intestines and the bowels. And it turns out that we even use it for that today, but not the leaves. We love the seed husks of the plant itself, and you'll see that if you were to go to a pharmacy or like a grocery store and you look for psyllium, that is the seed husk of the plantain.
While some may consider this beautiful, humble plant a weed, hopefully you've learned some of its magic today with me. And I just really, again, want to thank this plant because the Plantago virginica, when I was in the hospital, I just ate it raw daily, and it truly helped heal my lungs as well. So this is a beautiful, wonderful healing plant, and just a really great one to get to know for a variety of reasons.